Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Studio 78 podcast. I am your host, Nache from NacheSnow.com. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, I have another amazing guest on this week, Miss Kelsey Dana. She's an amazing illustrator based out of Honolulu, Hawaii. I think you guys are going to absolutely love her. Before we kick this episode off, a few housekeeping things. This is the week, if you're going to the Craftcation conference, that you can sign up for my class if you're attending the conference, and it is about building a second brain with Notion. You guys know I love Notion, so if you are attending the conference and are interested in how to use Notion to help you personally and work-wise, please sign up. I would love, love, love to meet you guys if you are all are also attending and sharing all my tips and tricks. If for some reason you can't come to Craftcation and hang out with me to get you started, remember I have a free Notion template that will kick you off and help you get started in learning the program, and you can find that at nachesnow.com/Notion. And trust me, my friends, I've got all kind of new Notion stuff coming your way, so stay tuned. Also, if you love this podcast, please take a few minutes and head over to Apple Podcasts and rate me 5 stars. Your ratings go a long way. If you're on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up. And of course, wherever you're listening, please subscribe, my friends. All right. And then, of course, NacheSnow.com/shop to get to all the things that I sell, Notion, the Life Cleanse Journal, all that good stuff. Okay, so back to Kelsey. I found her on Instagram, and as soon as I scrolled through her Instagram page, I instantly fell in love with her work. She is a self-trained illustrator. She learned it during the pandemic, as you will hear. And wow, I mean, this just goes to show you when you have vision and determination, what you can do. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but she just talks to us about her journey, how she balances motherhood with making time to be creative. And then she also talks to us about how she has grown her business over the last couple of years and just things that she's doing as she's kind of learning along the way. So it was just a really inspiring story with also some great tips. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Please let us know. Okay, here we go. All right. Hello, Kelsey, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. I've got so many questions, but before I kind of really pick your brain on all the things and get into your beautiful artwork, can you just tell the listeners a little bit about you and your background?
My name is Kelsey Dana. I'm a freelance artist, illustrator. I live here in Honolulu, Hawaii. I was born and raised here. I'm just lucky to call this place home and that I get to raise my keiki here. So
yeah, I must say I'm a little jealous, and I'm sure the listeners are just a little jealous too, because the dream is always, so I'm on the East Coast, right? Okay. In DC. But I always am
nice.
it'd be nice to move to Cali or Hawaii,
right.
or
I know. It's literally the land of endless summer. We get rain, and then everybody's it's winter, but not really. It's
You're
awesome.
It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I can't imagine living anywhere else, but yeah, it's awesome here.
Yeah, so now that we're just a little jealous, just a little bit.
Well, Hawaii's open, so come anytime, visit anytime, yeah.
Will do. I think I've been to the Big Island. It was great. Okay. And so, but now I want to go, I don't know if it's going to be I don't know if I should go to Maui or someplace else to really see Hawaii, but not too much of the touristy part. So if you have any recommendations, let me know.
I would definitely go to Kauai if you can. That place is just so gorgeous. I want to move there tomorrow, but yeah, if you can, definitely make it out there.
Will do.
Yeah.
So, okay, so I have your website up. And for the
Hmm.
listeners out there, the links are going to be in the show notes. And Kelsey's art is just like beautiful. I like saw it. And if you guys know me and my aesthetic, which you guys should, her style is totally my jam. And so, can you tell us, like, how did you get started?
Yeah, I mean, this is like a relatively new career path for me. I think I've been doing it for maybe 2 years now.
Mm.
I never thought in my life that I would call this my job. Yeah, so like most people, I was working at a corporate job, office job, and then the pandemic hit.
Mm.
And so, again, like many people, I also lost my job. And I kind of had all this free time, and I was like, I'm just going to give this art a try, Yeah, and I just kept posting. And I think it was, in many ways, it was like my coping mechanism for all the change that was going on in my life. And so I just started to share it. And then the rest is history. It's been great to just like connect and meet with so many new people.
Yeah. And then so before the pandemic,
Yeah.
were you like a graphic designer by trade, or did you already know how to illustrate, or did you literally like teach yourself during the pandemic how to
Yeah,
do
it's
this?
funny. Yeah, I was in marketing, business marketing. So there was some creative element to that, but I never took art class, never been to art school. The most I did was like doodle maybe on my free time, but never anything serious. I just started drawing like with pen and paper, and I got an iPad and then started from there. But yeah, never had any experience or anything like that before diving into this.
I'm glad you said that because I'm a graphic designer by background. I went to school
Oh,
for
okay.
graphic design, and people are
Awesome.
like, "Oh, well, do you have to be trained in graphic design to be
Mhm.
an artist?" And I'm like, "No, like
Right.
you don't." I'm
Right.
like, everyone has like this creative kind of spark within them, and
Mhm.
it's about, to me, okay, people hate the word hustle, but I'm going to use it. To me, it's about the hustle. Like,
It
if
really
you
is.
really want to learn how to
Yep.
do something, like, you're gonna watch all the YouTubes, the
Yep.
Skillshare courses, the
Right.
Domestika courses, the
Right. And
like,
and
right?
the thing is too, when I was in college, like YouTube was there, but it wasn't a big thing, like Skillshare, things like Skillshare weren't around. And
Oh
so
yeah.
in my mind back then, I was like, the only way to make a career out of this is if I had my art in like a gallery or something. And I was
Oh
like, in
right.
my mind, I couldn't see the like real world application for it. And so I thought, why would I go into a career in art? And so now I can YouTube anything, right? Like,
Yeah.
how do I do this in Illustrator, or how do I do this in Procreate? And it's so accessible now and all the resources are there. So you're never too old to learn. That's like the biggest like thing I've come to realize through all of this, really.
I agree. And it's interesting because, yeah, you're right. Like, I remember growing up, there was like, okay, I'm going to date myself here a little bit. But in high school, we had pagers, we
Right.
smartphones.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so people that were creative, regardless if
Hmm.
you were a woodworker, a
Hmm.
painter, and so forth, you would
Hmm.
just learn. You would learn from other people,
Right.
right? You would
Right.
learn from magazines, because magazines, I feel like back in the day, were huge, right?
Yeah.
And so you would
Hmm.
see artists, and then you would go to Michael's or whatever.
Oh, right, right. Yeah.
And you would just practice until you
Hmm.
were good. And so I do
Right.
really think it is about what you have inside and wanting to get it out and just
Yeah.
practicing over and over again. And
Right.
so for
Totally.
those people out there who are like, oh my goodness, I can't believe Kelsey just got started in 2020. What did that look like for you? Like, every day, did you like challenge yourself to do a sketch?
Yeah.
What did that learning process look like for you?
Yeah. I mean, like I mentioned, there was so much change happening in my life. And so the only like creative outlet I had was drawing. And so poured myself into that, right? Like, how can I get this change out and processing it, everything. And so, yeah, I would just, whatever I was feeling that day or whatever it was, I would just draw it out and then hoping that it would resonate with somebody else out there who maybe was going through the same thing or struggling or whatever it was. And then, yeah, just, oh, how do I do this in Illustrator or whatnot? And like I said, YouTube, Skillshare, like those kind of resources were like immensely helpful, and they still are. So Yeah.
Yeah. And then how did you settle on, like, when I look at even your like Instagram account, you
Uh-huh.
have a very specific style. Like what I didn't do, and sometimes I normally do, is go all the way back to the beginning of
Yeah.
someone's account to see how it's
Yeah.
changed. But you have a very distinct style, and like even like your color usage, right?
Right.
Like
Right.
there's a signature to it. And so, how were you able to develop that? Because I think sometimes creatives struggle with
Yes.
that, and you can see
Yes.
like when you look at their stuff, it
Yeah.
changes, which is okay, but it is nice once you like know what your style is.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because I feel like a lot of creatives were always on that struggle to find out like what is my style? Like what like I see a lot of other artists and I'm like, oh, their style is so good. And for me it's just like this always constant like struggle to find what it is, but yet when I hear from other people, they're like, you have such a strong style.
You
So
do. And I
so
don't know,
it's
maybe
so
it just
hard.
came over time and it's hard to explain
Yeah.
it, but you do have a
Yeah.
very distinctive style. Like I feel like if I saw you in Uppercase magazine or something, I'll be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I bet you that's Kelsey's work."
Oh, that's yeah, it's so funny. And so I think a lot of it is just like perspective on how we view things, how I view myself. But yeah, a lot of it is just time and finding what feels right to you, I guess, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. Like when I'm drawing, if like the colors just aren't, I know it's not like scientific or there's no strategy behind it, but it just like it doesn't resonate with me, then I'm like, okay, I need to change this color or change this style or so. I
Mhm.
know it's hard to put in words, but that's kind of my thought process when I'm like designing a piece or colors or things like that.
And another thing about your art, I feel like
Mhm.
it's like telling a story, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just like curious, is
Hmm.
that intentional? As I look at it, I feel
Yeah.
like there are elements from your world, right? Someone walking
Yeah.
through a garden, three women
Right.
relaxing together. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? There's
Right.
like someone
Yeah.
playing music at a festival. So can
Right.
you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah.
What inspires you? And is there like a theme to your
Yeah,
illustrations?
I would say that obviously I'm heavily inspired by where I live, where I grew up, and also the community that surrounds that. And so trying
Mhm.
to use my art to create a community and create common ground, things like that. I'm also really drawn to like editorial type illustrations. Like I find
Mhm.
so much interest and so much value in those things because those two tell a story, right? Like through art. And so yeah, that's my general inspiration for things. And obviously, I'm a mom, so that's like also another big source of inspiration for me, as well as just women in general. Like we need to stick together and woman power and things like that.
I think somewhere on your feed, maybe as I was like
Mhm.
super stalking you, you and let me know if this is correct.
No,
I think you
yeah.
had posted a little bit about being a mom during the pandemic too,
Yes.
right? Didn't
Yeah, it was extremely hard, you know. Again, like all of us, we were working from home. I had two toddlers at the time, and so it was extremely hard. It was like the most stressful time in my life. And it was like, not only that, and just like the demand for my job was just like increasing. And it was hard working late nights. And yeah, and then it just hit a breaking point when they said that time to go back to the office. And I
mm,
couldn't get childcare secured fast enough. And so they didn't say that was the reason they let me go, but ultimately I think that's what happened. And so I was
mm,
just lit this fire in me, right? To just speak up and speak for any other moms out there going through the same thing or
mhm.
struggling. So yeah. So
Yeah. And then a question I sometimes get, especially for moms that are creators that have
hmm
small children, is
hmm
like finding the time.
yes. It's
Any
always about that.
advice?
Yeah. Like I said, during the pandemic and the year following that, I was home with both kids. I didn't get to send them off to daycare or whatever. So yeah, I was literally putting them to bed. And then that's when I would like start working or I just cannot creatively focus when there's like people screaming in my ear and things like that. And also for me to not feel guilty about working when felt like I should have been giving attention to them. Even now, I try to just work mostly when they're either asleep or at school now. Yeah, mom guilt is real, but we make it work.
Yeah, but I love that. It kind of like goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's like
Mhm.
essentially making time for your passion and putting in that work.
Right.
And this is like no judgment for someone who would do this, but
Yeah.
like when they
Yeah.
went to bed, you could have been like, Netflix,
Oh,
right?
yes, totally. And I'm like, I don't even watch TV anymore. But I think when you like are really passionate about something, you make the time and it doesn't always feel like work. And so I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the great part about it. Yes, I'm tired. Yes, I would love to watch Netflix, but I also know that this brings me joy too. And so, yeah, it's just carving out that time for yourself and then for your art or, yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And you say, okay, I'm going to focus on me and my kids and
Yeah.
like my art. At what point did you realize this might be something, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know if you eventually decided to go back to work or do
Mhm.
this full time, and please let us know. But like, at what point did you say this might be something?
I got reached out to by one of a local kids retailer here, and she had asked me to,
Ooh.
design some prints from her. And I had known about her business for a long time. So for me, it was like, oh man, like she's noticing me. Like, okay, like maybe I felt like confident a little bit. Okay, maybe I can do this. And from there, it was more and more people were reaching out. And so I was like, I'm not getting any younger and life is short. And so I have to at least try. If I don't try, I'll never know. So
Mm-hmm.
that was my thinking about just saying, hey, we're going to do this. Like, we need to try. Like, the office work will always be there. But me at this time in my life, like, it won't always be there. So that was my kind of like, I have to try. Yeah.
And so, what did that look like? Because I think sometimes people struggle with that where they begin to get noticed, right?
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
you start getting some work, either a
Right,
studio or like maybe
right,
someone reaches out to you for a licensing deal.
right, right.
And so, how did you like figure out how to scale it? What were like your next steps?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is in any sort of business. It's like there's a portion that's your craft, and then there's a portion that's also like the business side of it, right? So that part was also completely new to me. It was like Googling, setting up my own business account and getting a business license and what is a licensing agreement and things like that. And so it still is a learning curve for me. But yeah, there's a lot that goes into it and it's just taking things day by day. Obviously, I try not to say no to things, even though I'm scared or don't feel like I'm at that level, I guess. But yeah, so it's just like learning on the job, I guess you would say.
That kind of like imposter syndrome a little bit, right?
Right.
How do you push through that? Because I was talking to someone not too long ago about
Yeah.
even about charging what they're worth, and they
Yeah.
were saying like whenever they had to push that button and
Yeah.
email
Yes.
someone,
Yes. It's so
the
funny you say that. I'm always to my husband, okay, I'm pushing the button, like I'm gonna send it. Yeah. I think price is always like the sticky issue, especially when you're a creative, like
mm-hmm,
having to put a dollar amount or value to your work.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, I still struggle with that. That's why I think too, like building this like creative community and like people who are in the industry that you can just be like, hey, what do you think is a good, ballpark range for
mm,
something? Yeah, I have a few people that I've met just along the way who I feel like I can just like message here and there if I have a question or what did you do or what do you think about this? And I think building that community is like so important as like a freelancer, as a creative. And really as a small business owner.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so for you, because I've had a couple of illustrators on before,
Yeah.
and each one sometimes like the way they decide to diversify their income is just a little bit different, right? And
Mhm.
so for you, what did you
Mhm.
find that works, right? Because you could do merch, you could do
Right.
licensing,
Right.
you could have
Mhm.
your illustration used on like book covers. I mean, like it's like the
Right.
world is yours, which could be like,
Yeah,
what should I do?
it's
So like,
crazy.
yeah, what did
Right.
you choose?
Yeah, and so I think too, when I was in school, I didn't realize all the real world applications that art could have, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
packaging design, murals, yeah, it's endless,
Yeah.
web design, things like that. I just started with a few client jobs and then a few retail items.
Mm.
And then yeah, it just evolved from there. I do have a shop. I don't always like having the pressure to put out more merchandise, if that
Mm.
makes sense. Like there's always this kind of to be like, what's new? What's next? What item? What? And for me personally, I see it as a source of income, but I feel like I would rather spend my time more like on client work or things like that, or mural jobs yeah.
Mm.
But I
No,
do see the
yeah.
value in diversifying and having different avenues of income. Yeah.
It's interesting because I even had someone who was like a sticker maker, right? And so all
Right.
of her,
Yeah.
that was like her sole focus. I was
Right.
like, wow, that's like
Yeah.
a lot of stickers, but she was
Yeah.
doing the thing.
Right. Yeah.
So
It's totally, yeah.
it's so hard to kind of, I think sometimes for illustrators to be like, okay, so what is the thing that like really
Right.
energizes me?
Right.
And so when you
Totally.
mention client work, just for people out there that might be newbies to
Mm,
the whole
mhm.
business thing,
Right.
like what does that mean to you? Are they like commissioning you to do brand stuff? But what is that for
It's a
you?
mixed bag. There's a lot of, I would say, retail companies looking for unique patterns or stuff that they can put
Mm.
use on their merchandise. That's a big one I see here. It could be anything from branding, logos, although I try to stay away from logos because that's a whole different skill set, I feel like. And then there's like mural work, like big walls and things like that. Yeah, yeah. It's
No,
endless,
that
really.
gives a good, like broad sense because for people who are like, well, what could I do or what can I
Mhm,
pitch? And for
mhm.
you, do you find that just from word of mouth, like people are coming to you, or do you have a pitch deck or something that you send out?
Right, yeah. Sales is totally not my skill set. I would never like feel confident enough to go knocking on somebody's door and being, "Hey, hire me." But yeah, it's mostly just people reaching out, seeing my work on Instagram or maybe my portfolio. And especially in Hawaii, word of mouth is like huge, right? Because
Mm.
everybody knows everybody, somebody's related to somebody. And so I want to say 50% of the clients that I've worked with, I've had some personal connection with outside
Mm.
of like just the work. Oh, she worked with my brother, or his good friend was my old boss. And so word of mouth is huge.
Yeah, you've heard it before, folks. Expand that network, get out there
Yeah,
and do good work. Now,
yes.
question for you, since you've gotten started, have you done any like external activities, for example, participate in markets or in art galleries or anything like
Mhm.
that to help get exposure or either to sell your products?
Yeah, I did. I want to say maybe 2 years ago, a year ago. I did my first market. It was very small. Obviously, there is a lot that goes into that too.
Yeah.
Merchandise being your main thing that you need to sell, forms of payment, all those, your display, all those sort of things. But I found that again, because of word of mouth, it's so beneficial to go to those types of like markets and events if you have the energy and resources to do it. That first event I did, the girl next to me, I had gone to high school with. And then she referred me to somebody else a month or two later. And basically, it led to a mural job that I otherwise would not have gotten had I not gone to that first market that I
Wow,
did.
that power of connection.
Right. And so for me, it was just kind of like it was super scary. I felt out of my league, but I was like, I have to try, right? And so many more doors opened for me after doing that. And so that's why I always tell people like, just do it. You never know what can come out of it?
It's interesting. I follow like a few muralists that are
Hmm.
absolutely amazing, and they're always like, "Let me tell you guys, this is like back-breaking work." They're like,
It
"You're like
is.
sometimes right."
Yeah, it is. It is totally. Yeah, I haven't done a lot. I'm actually in the middle of doing one right now, which I have to leave for in a couple of hours to go and do. It's something that like it just fills my soul. I don't know how to explain it otherwise. Like I
Yeah.
was just like driving there the other day and I was like, man, like I'm so excited to go and do this. And like I think that also is like a moment for me, like that I'm doing what I should be doing, you know? Like
Yeah.
I'm not dreading it. I'm not stressing about it. Not to say that it's not hard or takes a lot of effort, but yeah, I'm just like excited to do it. And so
I love that. And
yeah.
then how do you plan for your murals? Do you like sketch it in like Procreate or another app? Do you use like what am I thinking of? A projector in order to
Yes.
project it? Like curious, like, what's your creative process for murals?
Yeah, again, I don't have a lot of experience in it, but from the ones
Yeah.
that I've done, yeah, it usually just starts with a sketch in Procreate after I get the general wall size and dimensions. And then typically I'll bring that into Illustrator, Adobe
Mm,
Illustrator. And then there I can easily play with colors and, it's just a lot more flexible in terms of editing and things like that than Procreate.
mm.
So there's that. There's the projector part, which is tricky and can have a lot of like technical issues, but so far so good.
Yeah.
It's worked for me. Yeah, and then figure out colors and paint and how much paint.
Right.
Yeah, ladders and brushes and things. There's a lot that goes into it, and so it's definitely a labor of love, I would say.
And then is it, I mean, this is going a little weedy, but just
Yeah,
curious. I'm sure like for indoor, outdoor, you use like the correct paint, but
right.
is it really just paint from like
Yeah.
Ace
Yeah.
Hardware or like Lowe's,
Yeah,
Home Depot?
and that was the one thing I'm like Googling before I started my first mural. What do I use? How do I get paint? And there's a lot of different ways you could do it. You could do spray paint, you could do, I guess, art paint, like acrylic paint. But I just use, yeah, you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and they got the big wall of color swatches. And then I just try to like color match to my image as closely as I can.
And
Uh,
then for all the soon to be illustrators that might be listening
mhm,
out here, or the current illustrators that just love
mhm.
nerding out, what are your favorite programs? Do you start in a digital program like Illustrator, Procreate, or something else? Or do you start by hand? Just curious, like your favorite tools, digital or analog.
Initially, when I first started, I literally just bought a sketchbook and I would,
Mm.
when the kids were at the playground, I'd be sitting on the side with my pencil and just sketching. And then
Yeah.
later take that into the computer or whatnot. But then I got an iPad for Christmas like 2 years, 1 year ago, and then there's Procreate, and it's so accessible as far as like just doing quick sketches and stuff. But it definitely has its limitations, I feel like, especially when you're
Hmm.
doing larger projects that require vector images.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
super nerdy and stuff. But yeah, and so then learning Illustrator is a huge challenge because that software is so complex
It is.
but
Yeah.
also so amazing. Yeah, Skillshare has been great for me in learning how to use Illustrator, and YouTube. YouTube is another good one too. So, yeah, typically just Procreate and Illustrator, really, and pencil and paper when I can.
I know. I wish like Illustrator on the iPad was like more sophisticated, right?
I did download it and I was like, wow, like this is pretty awesome. But then it does have
It has
its
like
own,
its feet, right? Like it's
yeah,
like they
it's like
weren't
a
able
teaser.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, get all like those key features into the app.
It would be awesome if like the full functionality was on an iPad. It is
For
what it is.
I
Yeah.
know. We'll
Yeah.
take what we can get.
Yeah.
Yeah, curious. So
Mhm,
I'm assuming, but correct me if I'm wrong, you're
mhm.
still doing this full time. Like you like this
Yeah.
is your full time job. Is that accurate?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I'm committed now. For a while, like, people would come to me with like job offers. Hey, this office is hiring, and it's tempting, don't get me wrong, right? The like stable income and security, but this just feels like I'm doing the right thing where I am now. So I'm gonna run
Mm,
with it for as long as I can, if
yeah.
not forever.
I was gonna ask, like on the podcast, we talk a lot about like productivity and like
Mm,
balance and so forth. So
mhm.
for you, what does that look like? Like, how do you organize, right? All the things like keeping that sort of work life balance per
Yeah,
se. What
yeah.
does that look like when you have like clients emailing, but then you have to
Hmm.
plan for this mural, but then you're trying to sketch new stuff for
Yeah,
merch? What's
yeah.
what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I'm a list person, so I
Mm.
like to make a lot of lists. Otherwise, if it's not on my list, it can slip my mind. So it's very basic. I have lists everywhere and post-it notes. And it's also a lot of it just like remembering to not overload myself. I hate turning people down, and so, but I have to remember that I need to give each of them my time, right? So I can't just overload myself and do a half-ass job on this client work. So I have to just say, okay, how about schedule it out months down the line? And more than often, clients are happy to wait or wait for me to be available to do work. So yeah.
And do you have a favorite like finance tracking tool?
I don't. I use Excel, but I do know how to use QuickBooks and things like so. I'm familiar with using QuickBooks, but I haven't yet brought my art business into there, though I think I should soon. But QuickBooks is very easy to use, so I would recommend it for
No, some
anybody.
people love Excel. Like I've talked to people and they're like, I
They
like
swear by
my
it.
yeah.
Yeah,
They've got
yeah.
like their calculations, their formulas and stuff
Yep,
going.
yep, yeah. I'm an Excel nerd. Like, I love Excel, but when it comes to like tax time, it can get hectic, So that's where I think like a software like QuickBooks would be great.
And then before I get to the wrap up question, we're going to just manifest this, but
Hmm.
what's your dream job? Like in the next year or two, like
Ooh, yeah.
what would be like the thing where you're like, mic drop, like I don't even know what could
Oh
top this.
man, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, like I said, I really love editorial work, and
Yeah.
so if I could get more editorial type jobs, whether it's like for a magazine article or online publications, things like that's where my creative like mind does its happy dance. That's where I think I like to spend more time in, and obviously more mural work. So like those are like my two goals that I want to hit this year.
But I'm sure
Yeah.
like I guess is social media like a big part of your marketing too and part of your word of mouth strategy?
Yeah, I would say it's the biggest sort of like marketing sort of thing you can do, especially as like a freelancer or like a small business. And I think too with Instagram and social media, a lot of it is not just about selling your services, but selling yourself, selling your story. And they want to feel connected to you and hopefully get inspired. And so I think that's what I try to do a lot of, just to humanize myself and just the whole business side of my art career.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird too because I feel like sometimes people feel like overwhelmed or like what to post and then they overthink it. And so for you, do you just like on a
I
Sunday or something be like, I'm gonna post
Yeah,
these?
I totally get that. It's a lot. It can be draining and stressful and super time consuming, but I totally also see the value in it. And like I said, back in the day, we didn't have social media to promote ourselves. So I think we're so lucky to have this tool now. But yeah, I mean, you don't even want to know how long I spend making reels and things like that. But
And,
but I
and
will
for
never
you,
do a dance or anything like that. So
is it more organic or do you have a social media strategy?
it's all organic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never paid for ads or things like that. Though, it works for a lot of people. I
Yeah.
totally get it. Yeah.
And then if you're like, oh, this will be a good reel, it's not. Did have you planned like 4 months in advance for the reel?
A lot of the times for me it's like when I'm, let's say, like how I'm doing the mural now, it's like planning, right? Okay, if I want to share this later, I need to start
Mm.
videoing now, right? And especially when with a mural, like once I paint, that initial first before picture is gone, right? So I have
It's
to think about those things. And again, that's totally not part of the creative side of the business. That's more like sales and marketing in many ways. So Yeah, it's a lot.
I think that is a great tip because it's letting people know while you're in the midst of the process
Yeah.
of creating and doing something, just capture stuff. Take pictures,
Yes.
take videos. You don't even if you don't know how you're going to
Yeah.
use it, right? Just
Yep.
click 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 click. Yeah.
Yeah. And my husband is always like, "Why do you have so many photos or like videos?" And I'm like, "Well, you never know. Like maybe I'll use it for something, but because once that moment is gone, it's gone, right? You know,
Yeah.
so just capture it. If you don't use it, just trash it later. But yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So, couple wrap up questions. It's been so
yeah.
good. How do you stay organized? Do you have any tools, software, or techniques that you want to share?
Yeah, calendars are really important for me. I just
Mm,
use all the Google Suite sort
mm.
of programs, the calendar, the email, all the docs and things like so everything stays in one place for me. And like I said, I'm old school when it comes to just making lists and highlighting things. I don't have to get too fancy there. As long as I can see it visually like on my wall, then I'm good.
Hey, if it works.
Yeah.
And then, do you have a hobby?
I used to have a lot of hobbies before kids. I used to surf a lot. Since having kids, it's just time. Time is very scarce. But yeah, we like to go to the beach still, things like that, go hiking, get outdoors.
No, I love it. It's kind of like unplugging and yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's
Hmm.
good. Hmm.
And then last but not least, please tell
Hmm.
the listeners where they can find you.
Oh, yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. My account is at Kelsey Dana. Very simple. And then my website is just kelseydana.com.
Perfect. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for coming on, Kelsey.
Thank you for having me. This has been so fun, and I feel like we could like chat for hours.
I know, right?
Yeah, so fun.
Wow, so amazing, right? And she wants to get into more murals, people. So if you're somewhere in Hawaii, please hire Kelsey because her murals are kind of beautiful. And if you just want to support Kelsey because she is an amazing artist, go and check out her shop. She has some really cool works. I'm going to check out her shop too because I, in my new home, want to build like an amazing art gallery. And I think one of her pieces would look great within my gallery. So definitely you guys should check her out and support this artist. Okay, so that's it, folks. You guys know the drill. If you want to support the podcast and yourself, please head on over to nachesnow.com/shop, and that'll take you over to the shop arm of my page. If you want to leave me a voicemail, check out the show notes for this page, nachesnow.com/163. Now, only will it have all the links that Kelsey mentioned, but it'll also have a little speaker over there where you can tap it and leave me a message. Can't wait to hear from you guys. If you love this episode, you know what to do. Please give me a thumbs up on YouTube. And also, if you happen to be an Applehead, please rate me 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, you guys, chat with you all next week. Hope you all enjoyed this episode. Talk to you later. Bye.